Did you know that the global horse racing industry is projected to reach over $793 billion by 2030? $793 billion. Wow. With such staggering figures, efficient horse management has never been more crucial. Our guest today transformed a personal need into a groundbreaking solution for horse owners worldwide. Combining his expertise in software engineering with a passion for equestrian care, he developed a platform that streamlines everything from veterinary records to performance tracking. Welcome to another episode of Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their strategies, stories, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. In this episode, I talk to Andy, the founder of Horse Record. So I hope you enjoy. Andy, welcome to the show.
G'day, Ash, and g'day to your listeners. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You're doing okay?
Yes,
Great.
yes, yeah.
Great. So Andy, do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you? Would you like to share with our audience?
Yeah, certainly. My favourite quote of all time is success is a staircase, not an elevator. And unfortunately, in society today, we see a lot of people getting a big win, basically a jackpot win, and suddenly they're successful and they're millionaires. And what they don't see is the years and years that have built them up to that spot and got them to there.
Hmm.
So I find that understanding that just consistent effort over time um, beats waiting and doing nothing until you get that windfall gain and
Definitely.
that huge win. And yeah, I
Definitely.
hope that one day when I'm up that staircase, everyone will say, "Gee, you've gone up the elevator really fast." I'd be like, "Yeah, there's decades behind it, mate. Decades."
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you can always share this interview with them. Look, we had this interview done
yeah.
years back, right?
That's right. Or hopefully only a few months, Ash, because
Yeah,
my ship's
yeah, yeah.
coming in, mate.
Definitely, definitely. Great stuff. So Andy, first of all, congratulations on what you're doing because this is something very niche, and I personally love founders who get into a very niched out market and
Mm,
try to do something impactful, which is what you're doing right now.
mm.
Just tell us about Horse Record. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
Yeah, well, it actually started when I was like, I'm a software engineer, I'm a city boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I met a horsey girl and fell in love with her and eventually asked her to marry me. No one gave me any warning at the wedding, everyone was just giggling. Um, but yeah, if you marry into the horse world, be prepared for a lot of manual labor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so, so yeah, I was fixing a fence one day, and my wife rode past, frustrated. Uh, Someone had called her about a horse she'd bred 15 years earlier. We've got a 30-year old, sorry, stock horse stud, Australian stock horses, which is like the Australian working horse.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife runs that stud, and anyway, I was fixing a fence, and she rode past and said, someone just called me about a horse I bred 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And even though my wife's got a really good memory, she couldn't exactly remember what this new owner had wanted on her horse. So she said, "Look, can you just write something online so I can go on my phone and find this info?"
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "Yeah, sure. Do you want me to finish fencing now and go and do it? Or do you want me to continue the fencing?" And she said, "Continue the fencing. Oh, and feed the horses, then go and do
Mm-hmm.
it because that's how it works in the horse world."
Yeah.
So I wrote some code that ran for our stud. We ran it for a few years and it worked pretty well. We were recording things like farrier and dentistry. Horses need a dentist once a year, by the way, Ash. Not many people
Oh.
know that.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
their teeth keep growing, so you actually literally have to file them.
Hmm.
So that a vet or a horse dentist will come and literally file the teeth.
Wow.
You record their wormings and their vaccinations and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
after a few years, my wife said, "Why don't you make this available to other people?" And I went, "Oh, okay." So I rewrote it to be multi agent so that um, anyone could use it for their horse things. But I
Hmm.
also recognise that we do Australian stock horses, which sort of do almost everything except racing. In fact, so polo cross, eventing, dressage, cross country, camp drafting, which is chasing a horse around a cow.
Hmm.
Um, Stock horses do reining, which is a American event. I'm sure you would know what dressage is, for example, being in the UK. I recognised that what we were doing with the horses was not necessarily what other people are doing with the horses, different
Hmm.
events, different breeds, different focuses and priorities. So, what I did is when I coded, I made it really customizable. So, someone who's doing dressage, they care about their scores, they care about their training, etc.
Hmm.
Someone who does camp drafting cares about, um, what they've done with the horse, how they scored that, totally different scoring systems. Someone on cross country or endurance is trying to get to Saudi Arabia and do the endurance race there, popularized in the movie Hidalgo. And so horse records, when I coded, I recognized there were all these disciplines and all these breeds. There's even sub-disciplines within the disciplines, so I made it all customized.
Hmm.
So effectively, it's for horse owners and horse businesses,
Hmm.
like trainers, studs, people who do agistment or homesteading, I think the Americans call it.
Hmm.
And yeah, the software is just built over time to just handle this. Yeah, and what we're helping solve is the fact that unfortunately our memories aren't as good as they used to be, Ash.
Yep.
Whiteboards and spreadsheets are great for a snapshot in time,
Hmm.
but you try and go back in history to find out what was on that whiteboard 10 years ago or what was in that spreadsheet 10 years ago before you changed it all around. And notebooks, unfortunately, just physically degrade. You can file them as best as you can, but after 10 years, that book is falling apart.
Mm.
So yeah, we're hoping that putting on the web with the available from any device just helps them record all their horse information. And
Hmm.
in some ways, Ash, I hope it increases the price of the horse because it's much more valuable to buy a car with a full service history.
Mm.
If you're buying a horse with a full farrier worming training, performance, vaccination, injuries, even their heart rate as it's changed over time, you can record that,
Mm.
and their respiration rate. If you've got all that, you just know what you're buying, and that makes the horse more valuable for the seller. Yeah, so it's been fun. It's been fun.
Perfect, perfect. And that is what fascinates me, that in normal world we don't know about horses that much. For us
Mm,
it's more or less like when we watch Game of Thrones, like, oh my god, these
yes.
these animals are so beautiful, like where did they
Mm,
gone? And then when we go
mm,
to, like, there's change of guards meeting at Buckingham
yes.
Palace, we
Oh, they're
see
beautiful animals. Oh,
these animals, and there's, oh, mesmerizing, and we want to take pictures with them. But then in reality, in the background, what's going on to take care of them, the daily
mm,
effort, the inspiration, the motivation behind it
yeah.
is so deep. The love is so much, entangled
Oh,
with these species. It's
mm,
so inspiring, because we humans, we have become so selfish nowadays. We actually have cats and dogs because we want to
mm.
have somebody to cuddle to. And
Yeah.
we don't and more and more people in London nowadays, there was a study shown by, I think it was Reuters or BBC, one of them, I don't remember exactly. They said that more and more single people is getting a cat, because cat
Mm,
is an animal which needs least amount of attention uh, to to
right. But they
to
can
make a
still
pet.
pat it, which you
Yeah.
can't do to a fish.
So
Yeah.
it in a way I can see that where the studies are coming from.
Mm,
It's not exactly the same relationship we used to have with animals in back
mm,
in those days, where we were like equally involved in the relationship.
mm.
But what you're doing here tells me that there's still hope. There's still people who
Oh,
love
yeah.
the
Oh
animals
my
in
God.
that
You
way.
meet you meet a horse girl or a horse person. um, at my son's basketball, one of the parents is a horse trainer, a racehorse trainer,
Mm.
and yeah, mate, easily talk to him about. He could talk about horses all day, and
Mm.
he works with them all day, and he could still keep talking about them.
Wow.
You know what happened to this one. I'll tell you something interesting about horses is they're herbivores, and so you know how a dog, when you train a dog, you give it positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So it does something good. You go, oh, good boy, good boy.
Mm.
And a cat is more you tell it what not to do. So you know you got the water pistol and stuff like that. With horses, because they are herbivores, they effectively want to be left alone. Because
Mm.
if anything is sort of different, it could be a predator or something they need to worry about.
Mm.
Yeah. So when you're training horses, most often the reward is to remove the aid. So you might put the aid on, which might be your leg or your
Mm.
hand. Say your leg, right? You're trying to get it to move to the left. You put your right leg on, and it would move away from that because it's trying to stop the impulse. And as soon as it moves away, you take your leg off, and the horse goes, oh, oh, that's good. So its reward is actually leaving it alone.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's how a lot of trainers will train. They'll put the aid on. As soon as the horse does what they want, they remove the aid. So you could almost say that horses are digital rather than analog if you wanted to get nerdy about it.
Yeah, 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 definitely. And Andy, would you would you tell us when you had this epiphany, when you had this conversation with your wife? And I
Mm,
can see that, like you eat your own. There was a
dog food.
phrase,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Eat
yeah,
your
dog
own
food.
dog food. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how you came up with the idea, right?
Mm,
When you had
mm.
this epiphany, did you look into the market? Were there any other products? What was going on at that time? And what did you see from your research that encouraged you to move ahead with this idea?
Well, that I think I go sort of against the standard here. I
Mm,
didn't look at any competitors. I figured if there was something good, my wife would have known about it and it
mm,
would have been used. And I just coded what we needed, recognizing that that would be broad enough.
mm,
And it was only after I'd launched that I thought, I might look at some other competitors.
mhm,
You can probably tell from the accent I'm from Australia. There aren't any competitors in Australia that I'm aware of that are of any note.
mm,
Most of the competitors are American products. Um, and when researching them, they seem to be either old products that used to be on the desktop that they've sort of ported to the web and done it badly, in my
mm,
opinion, being a web guy. Um, but also, they tend to be very specialized. So, one product, a customer once called me up and said, we do 200 or 300 embryo transfers a year.
mhm,
So, what that is you get one mare. You got, say, this is polo cross they're doing. So, you got polo cross, which is lacrosse, but on a horse.
mm.
And
Well,
you
what
have a
does
mare.
transfer means?
Oh, this is what yeah, embryo transfer. So what
Okay.
you do is you get your favourite mare, and you don't
Uh-huh.
want to take her out of training. You get her pregnant, and then you transfer the embryo from one mare to a recipient mare. A bit like
Um,
IVF, some of the IVF stuff for humans. Yeah,
okay.
and it's a thing, man. It's expensive. You've got drugs flying all the way. You've got
Mm,
all sorts of scans for the mare and the 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 mother and the surrogate mare.
mhm,
It's all happening, and yeah, they rang me up and they said, "Hey, we do 300 of these a season. Um, we'd really like Horse Records to do something. We found this other product that does it, but it doesn't do all the stuff Horse Records does." So
mm,
I got them to show me it, and I went, "Oh, I can recreate that." So I recreated that, and they've used it for several years now.
mm,
Doing, so I found that a lot of the products that are competitors are actually very specialized, like just breeding and embryo transfer and artificial insemination, or
mm,
just performance, or just vet stuff, where I've sort of got kind of everything and adding more features over time.
Mm.
So yeah, so my competitors are either they've got old software they've converted to web, and really they're on the final stages. They've just they're almost dead, or you've got competitors that are very specialised and not as broad as mine. But to be honest, I don't really worry about competitors, Ash. I just you know I, I never have. I don't want to get anxiety about worrying about competitors. I know some of the names that are out there,
Mm.
but I don't. I don't bother about them. I'm going well enough for it not to matter. So I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
where I'm kind of against normal entrepreneurs.
Mm.
Like there's
Yeah, yeah.
competition in every field. So it's very hard to create something that there's no competition. You're always going to have competitors. You just need to get your piece of the
Yeah,
pie. Yeah.
yeah. Great, which is good. Like, you know, I was asking this question is because what's happening nowadays is people, your story is different because you're doing things after getting feedback from customer. That's what I have
Mm,
heard from you, right?
mm,
That is one of the best way to disrupt the market. What
mm,
Airbnb did, what so then Dropbox did, this is what they did. They listened to the
mm,
customers and then they
mm.
created their platforms, and that is one way to get successful. The other way is like to figure out what the competitors are doing and then do what they're not doing or do something what
Yeah.
they're doing better, right? So you have chosen the first path, which is
And
amazing.
yeah, and also the recognition that a lot of the value in the business is actually in your relationships with your customers and your. I've got relationships with state racing bodies. So when racehorses retire
Mm,
and become what they call off the track, they often get brought up and then they get trained to do dressage or eventing because they only they're sold at 5-6 years old, and a horse will live to 25, 30, depending how they go. So they've
mm,
got at least 20 years ahead of them. So there's a value in horse records with the relationships I've got with various state racing bodies within Australia,
mm,
and happy to have them with other state racing bodies in other countries,
definitely.
um, where we help that racehorse move to its new career that's no longer racing. Um, and that's a real value that Horse Records has. And I know that if someone else were to come into the market, copy the software completely,
Mm,
they still wouldn't have those relationships. So there's a value there as well, in not
yeah.
just the software, but the relationships and also the customer base.
Mm,
There's thousands of customers, tens of thousands of horses.
indeed.
Just in little old Australia. So yeah.
That's really good, and I want to highlight this, that it's not just about how the software or the platform works. It
Mm,
is more actually about the relationships you have with your
mm,
customers, because if you go out and you see the most successful platforms nowadays, most of the founders, they had one-to-one connection, one-to-one relationship with
mm.
their initial at least 100,000 customers, and
Yes,
that's how they
yes.
build their empire. So couldn't agree more with you on this one. So going back, and I want to learn more about your customers
Mm,
and your team members also, but before we go there, I want to give idea to my listeners that it hasn't been a easy journey for you, because they must be thinking, oh, Andy just spoke with his wife and then created something and it becomes successful. No, that's
yeah,
not
nah.
true. That's a wrong idea you're getting right now. There's a lot of work behind the scene. So
Yeah.
what I want to convey is the hard work you have done in the background.
Mm,
Would you tell our listeners, how did you got your first 10 customer? Because I'm thinking the
yeah.
first customer is yourself, right? Your wife
Yeah.
used it.
Yeah.
But what was
Yeah.
the struggle you gone through to get your first 10 customers? What strategies you used, and what are the advice you would give somebody who would start in the same space or a
So,
different space?
yeah, I started first writing the code in January 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first commit. I researched the software to build it in for about 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite a long time. I mean, I'm a professional software engineer, and I wasn't convinced that what I work in day to day was going to work. So I researched it. I picked a software called called Django,
Mm-hmm.
which is based in Python. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so I started in 2019. I built it and I was ready to launch about halfway through 2020, which was COVID times. And I wasn't really affected by COVID, but my wife said, no, I really need these extra features. Um, I can't even remember what they were, but it was something like photo upload or something like that. And I thought, well, minimum viable product, don't need to upload photos, could probably
Mm-hmm.
get away with it. Yeah, I wasn't right. So I held off. I added some extra features that came up, and it turns out that horse people are very pragmatic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've seen some research. Horse people, on average, have a degree or higher. They're
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty qualified on
Mm-hmm.
average. They're not necessarily bleeding edge tech nerds, of course. They totally love their horses, so there's no doubt about that. Um, so what I did was from about 2000, I created the Horse Records Facebook page and used it almost as a devlog of as I added a feature, I would either upload a video or upload some screenshots
Mm-hmm.
of me talking about the feature. And what I found there, it actually worked really well. I had no idea if it did work. I actually just needed to get it out of my head
Mm-hmm.
and onto the page to say, hey, I've done this, it is coming, and this is where I'm at. And it was almost a selfish thing that it gets in my head, I have to put it out. But it actually really helped because people could follow along and
Mm-hmm.
ask questions. And if you go to, if you feel like falling asleep, you could go to my Facebook page and go back to 2020, see some of the early posts, or go to the YouTube page and see some of the really, really early videos. Um, and and I found that devlog meant that when I launched, I not only got 10 customers, I got 10 paying customers on that first day. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just, because I bootstrapped it, like the whole thing's bootstrapped. It's just, you know, I haven't, I had another job and I was just, pay for the server. SaaS products don't cost a lot to run, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But to get 10 paying customers on the first day, oh, I was running around. It was great. Um, and I do put it down to that devlog and getting people involved in the development process and what I was building at the time. And then people go, oh, this is great. And then they share it with their friends and stuff like that. And yeah, that's how I got my first 10. So all
That's
good.
awesome. So
Mm,
you
mm,
you started coding like around 2019, then
mm.
your wife started asking you for new features like photo upload around 2020-ish, close to the COVID. Is
My
that the time when
yeah.
you created the Facebook page, right? The similar time, or it was way
Oh,
before that?
roughly, yeah, it might have been late 2019. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to check, Ash. But
Okay. Yeah.
pretty much most of once I got, yeah, this has got to that point where I'm going, yeah, okay, this is going to be a thing,
Mm,
and it's not just a flash in the pan. I'm actually going to keep at it. And then I started the Facebook page, um, and I think that devlog works really well for products like mine, which are sort of you're developing something that's a little bit different for an industry that doesn't have it, and then you build that loyalty ready for when you launch. You've got that loyalty already there.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
of my one of my first customers was a vet in Texas. She
Mm,
bought on day one,
mm,
and bless her heart. Um, so yeah, even though I do talk about Australia, I'm actually worldwide. It's just I haven't really focused on other countries much
yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you see, you're hitting all the points, Andy, here.
mm,
The way you started is
mm,
by, understanding the need in the market. That's
mm.
like one of the principles in lean
That's
startup.
you need an idea, don't you? Number
Yep, yep.
one, yeah.
And then the second framework bullet point in the framework is having a waiting list, which is either could be a email list, or it could be a
Mm,
Facebook page or a Twitter page. And you created that, and you
mm,
kept updating your followers, your genuine subscribers, about what you're doing. So they kept
mm,
getting this. sort of like a dopamine hit whenever you
Yeah.
release a picture. Oh, this feature is gonna come into the release.
Yeah.
This is coming, and they're
Oh,
like,
I could use that. Oh, that'd
I
be
can
great.
use that.
Yeah.
It would be fabulous for me to use it
Mm,
for my horse management system, and that's like the fundamental point at the startup framework, right? So you use that.
mm.
So I'm really glad that unconsciously you have actually followed the whole
Oh,
pathway for a successful
yes.
startup,
Yes.
right? That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great. So moving ahead, and I want to know personally about your life and
Mm,
your inspirations background. But before we get into that, can you give us a sense of the size of the business,
mm.
where you are in terms of the customer size of team, etc.?
Yeah, yeah. So the team realistically is me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not working full time on it yet. That's
Mm-hmm.
so I've got three phases I want. Phase one is where I'm at now, which is me working part time on the business, build it up to a point where I can quit my job for the man, work on horse records full time.
Mm-hmm.
I also do a little bit of consultancy work on the side because yeah, I've been
Need
around
to
a
keep
while.
bringing the bread and butter. Yep.
Yeah, mate, you got to put food on the table. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, and then phase two of the business is where I'm able to work on it full time and I'll be able to crank up the features. I have a bunch of ideas that will bring in further streams of income other than just subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing I think is important in a SaaS business, particularly. You can't just rely on subscriptions. You need multiple ways that money's coming into the business. Um, One way, I'll just diverge off quickly, Ash, but I actually have a collaboration with Australia's leading horse feed company.
Wow.
Yeah, so they pay me money to put up articles about their horse feed and how their feed can help people. And then I, put up the odd banner in certain places, but it's all very, very low key. It's not in your face. It's all very there. And then I put up articles about, or my marketing guys put up articles about,
Mm.
the whatever, this feed is good for old horses or this one's good for horses in work or not. So
Mm.
having that extra income stream is good. I have a marketing team that I subcontract to. I pay, an amount per month for them to do all my socials. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about that. I just focus on code and handling customers. I've got about, I think I could probably tell you exactly if I look up the stats. So I got excited one day and wrote a reports page that, yeah, so what are we at? So as of this month, yeah, just under 3,000 customers, which is
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
And a smaller fraction of those are paying, of course. I have 23,000 horses
Mm-hmm.
listed on it. Now, some of them are active, some of them are pedigree only, but thousands of customers, tens of thousands of
Mm-hmm.
horses. Um, yeah, and I have agreements with uh, three states and the major territory in Australia. There's like 5, 6 states, and got three left. I've got to conquer. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
all their off the track horses, all the new owners are given access to horse records.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a pretty small, tight group because it is effectively me, my wife, and mother-in-law are subject matter experts.
Mm-hmm.
My mother-in-law has written several books on horses,
Oh, nice.
and yeah, my wife has a strong um, sense of her own mind. I'm sure the horse people listening will have a bit of a chuckle at that one. So she
Mm-hmm.
knows what
Mm-hmm.
she needs in the software. We've been going since May 21, so I launched in 2021. So
Mm-hmm.
what's that, about almost 4 years? Jeez.
Mm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, almost 4 years. There you
For
go.
years now.
And this year I'm looking to expand to other countries, particularly European Union, UK,
Mm-hmm.
America, mainly because they speak English.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other countries I've got in mind, like the Middle East, a lot of horses there, and Argentina I would love because that's just the primo polo destination in the world. So
Oh.
there's lots of places there. So yeah, I think America and Europe I put UK with Europe because it's sort of in the same
Yeah,
spot on the globe. Those sorts of countries are the main ones, just because they speak English, so they don't have that language barrier to battle with. Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Mm.
Great stuff. So let's get into a little bit more about your story. I mean, um, I want to. I'm eager to learn more about person as you,
Mm.
right? Can you
Hmm.
take us back to your roots, your your childhood? Maybe share with our
Yeah.
listeners about your upbringing. How did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led
Yeah.
you to become a founder?
Yeah. So there were a few. I mean, my father was a mechanical engineer who specialised in mining,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pretty ephemeral um, gig, mining, because you might be at a nickel farm,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, a nickel mine, and then the nickel price drops, and they have to retrench staff. So my dad would go and work for, you know, a coal mine, or this is back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm turning 50 this year, if that gives you any hint. So my earliest days, we were on Christmas Island, which is an island just south of Java, in
Mm-hmm.
the Indian Ocean. Yeah, it's a phosphate mine back then, which is used in fertilizer. So I grew up in my early days living effectively on a tropical island. Well, it was a tropical island. So yeah, I've always loved that kind of heat and temperature, and just being near nature and the beach and stuff. Then
Mm-hmm.
we moved to, for whatever reason, I don't remember, I was too young. Then we moved to Brisbane, which is another just north of Sydney in
Mm-hmm.
Australia. And we moved around a few cities as I grew up. Every few years we would move because whatever mine was there would, go up or down in the price, or dad would get a better job or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, I don't actually like traveling or want to travel. So
A lot of traveling in the
I've
early
done
days.
enough in my youth that I just, different schools every few years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I always loved computers. We had a family friend who was a computer programmer. I wanted to be just like him. And, I had flights of fancy with studying physics at uni and wanting to be a doctor and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
programming was always where I ended back at. Um, I had one of my, I worked at banks a bit, which is great because they teach you process and procedure and why it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I moved on and had my own business building websites. And I found it got to the point where I had to leave that business because I was always getting beaten by graphic designers. And even though my sites were more secure and more performant and safer, they didn't look as pretty. So yeah, so I had to. I stepped out of that, went back into the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of most the reason I want to work for myself is I once did some contract work for a bloke. It was back in oh, 2008, 2006, something like that, and he it was some app, and it cost $10,000. I charged 10 grand. So back then that was that's a big deal, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
fairly big chunk of work.
Yeah.
And he complained about the work, about it costing so much. And I said, "Well, mate, I'm giving you the best price. This is what it is. It's a big job." Anyway, I gave it to him after working on it for months. He gave me 10 grand. And then I found out later that in that first month, he'd made 15 grand off that software.
Mm.
And every month after, 15 grand, 15 grand, 15. And I'm
And still
just
he
like,
complained about the
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I thought to myself, look, I don't have any bad feelings towards him because that was our agreement. Our agreement was I would do this code, he would pay me 10 grand. I was happy.
yeah.
But the fact that he made 15 in the first month and every month after that for years, just because of his connections and how he was
Mm.
able to sell the product, I felt that while that was not, you know, I felt that was unjust.
Mm.
You know, I felt that that wasn't fair. And I thought, yeah, I'm just going to work for myself now because I want to make myself rich rather than making someone else rich.
Mm,
Um, so, so that's why I've always, even though I do have worked salaried jobs and stuff like that.
mm.
I do want to work for myself completely, so that I'm the boss that's being made rich rather
No,
than
no, definitely.
someone
And
else. Yeah.
even though, Andy, you know, you won't become like Elon Musk, but
Mm,
having
I
the
don't want to,
freedom to
man.
work for yourself,
Yes.
having the feeling of winning when you do something for your own
Mm,
child, because it's your child, right? You created it
yeah,
out of
yeah.
you, right? That is much more satisfying than sitting in a room with, I don't know, most richest people in the world and playing
Yeah.
poker. Trust me.
Yeah, that's right.
If you go online and somebody says something about your software, like, I have never been so relaxed because of this software, that moment is a
Mm,
celebration moment. I feel
oh,
that
this,
when I look at my Trustpilot reviews, and I was like, oh my God, let's have a drink for that. That's
oh,
amazing,
yes.
amazing feeling.
Yeah, I've got a testimonials page that I just put up testimonials, and
Yeah.
it's amazing the different angles people come from on how the software has helped them.
Mm,
Like some just say they've helped this, helped that, or but just things I haven't ever thought of on how it makes them feel good. Um, it it is good, and I mean I've got one of my customers is uh, represents Australia in her particular discipline.
hmm.
Um, my wife is very active in horses. Almost every weekend, she's out doing some show. You know, got the largest embryo transfer for independent embryo transfer facility in Australia. So, we got it's just amazing the breadth of customers and the stories that are there. I'd love to just take them all out for a beer and have a chat.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. You need to bring them onto a show or something, Andy, and record
Mm,
with them,
podcast.
and that would be really really cool, because then
Mm,
other people can hear their stories, and it would be super amazing.
yeah.
Great.
Well, we
So go on. You were saying something.
oh we need more horse podcasts.
Definitely, definitely. Great stuff. Cool. So Andy, would you be able to share a compelling story about failure has helped a leader building strong connection or bounce back?
Mm,
Eh, what I mean by that is basically, you might have had this kind of like experience, like you shared about
mm,
with one of your customers. They were like
mm,
complaining about 10,000, but then you recognize they're making 15. Was there
mm.
any particular incident you felt that um, made you more stronger as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur? Yeah.
Yes. So I touched on when I had my own website business, and you remember the GFC in 2008, the global financial
GFC.
crisis.
Oh yes, it was horrible.
Yeah,
Everything was down. Oh my God.
everything went down. So
Yeah.
Australia was like the stock market just went doo-doo-doo.
Down there.
Um, Australia was kind of okay. We went all right. We still had food on the table and healthcare and all of that.
Hmm.
We're a wealthy country. Very privileged to live here. But so um, I, I thought I'd set my business up well. I knew I didn't want to rely on one client. I had two clients together that created 80% of my income.
Hmm.
And then the other 20 was other clients. And I thought, okay, probably a little bit heavy on the big clients, but it's not one client giving me 80. It's probably, anyway, I logged on in 2008 on my computer one day, and I realized I had no emails, like zero,
Hmm.
no work. So for me, my email list is kind of like my to do of what I've got going on. There was nothing, it was completely blank. And what had happened is my major clients dropped their work back 80% each.
Hmm.
So there was nothing there. And um, what happened was a lot of companies decided, see, the building a website budget, they can always hold it off. They just went, okay, we're going to hold that off for a year. So, um, and I had my son was on the way, and a young family and all that. It was just horrible, mate.
Mm,
And so while the GFC was 2008, I think this was 2010. It hit me. So I
mm,
took that amount of time, and I hadn't done anything wrong as far as I could tell. And I was stuffed. No money coming in, no jobs on the go, no pipeline. I
mm.
realised I had to go and work for the man, which was something that I hated. So I had to go and find a job.
Yeah.
Um, and that was hard. But while I was working for the man, I realised what I should have done is set up maintenance contracts with all my customers where
Mm-hmm.
they pay me an amount per month to look after their site and keep it updated. And
Mm-hmm.
what was happening was these customers would get their site built, call me in 2 years when something had crashed, and then I'd fix that where I should have been set up that routine, regular income.
Mm.
And yeah, that would have saved me a bit, I reckon. It would have kept me going long enough to be able to get more customers and handle that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, a bit of soul searching, and then further clarified I still wanted to work for myself, even though my first business had come to a finish. And yeah, so whenever I talk to people who are setting up businesses, particularly in the tech space, I say make sure you've got your regular income coming along, because you
Mm.
don't want that income slump in December, January, because in December it's Christmas, everyone shuts down.
That's yeah.
January, all the accounts departments are on holidays, and for some reason invoices don't get paid. So you got 2 months at least that you're always going to have that dip. So, and the
Mm.
regular income coming from subscriptions or a maintenance agreement or something, keeps you going. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Very
I
good
think
point, actually. Yeah.
yeah, it makes you stronger to fail. Um,
Mm.
sort of, a character is forged in fire or something like that, Ash, or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. No,
Mm,
definitely.
mm.
My mom always used to say that the goldsmith, that's the person who makes gold,
Yep.
because people don't buy a stone of gold in the
No.
gold showroom. They buy the ornaments made of.
Yes.
I mean, you have the quality. You are born as human. That's the biggest gift God has given you, if you believe in
Mm,
God or
mm,
any universal power. But then you have to make yourself something
mm.
valuable out of your character. So couldn't
Yeah.
agree more
Sometimes
with
you got
you
to take a few
on that.
hits,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
also
yeah.
think that sometimes you have to play the hand you've been dealt as best as you can. You know,
Mm,
we were both of us, born in pretty wealthy countries. We've been dealt a pretty good hand.
mm,
And to get that one bad card of a business failing, you just got to play it. You just got to keep going, um, and just keep that tenacity, and persistence. Um,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
without being, I don't know, but being good natured about it. I think some people make it their identity in a very negative way. Like, I
Mm,
come from the bottom. And it's like, well, what about all the people who aren't at the bottom? Do I have to go to the
yeah.
bottom first to succeed, or can I just succeed from here? And all you ever hear is the stories of people who, woke up in the gutter one day and then suddenly they're multimillionaires. And I think that cuts out all the people who are in the middle going, well, I'm middle aged, middle class, got a reasonable job, you know.
I mean, I feel like, Andy, that nowadays it's not about the underdog story. It's more about the middle class. The middle class
Mm,
has become the new underdog nowadays,
I
right?
think
So
so. Yeah.
great. So let's move to the next section
Oh,
of
look at that.
our podcast. I always do this with my guests, where I try to reiterate what we have discussed today,
Mm-hmm.
so that our listeners can, go to the summary part and then quickly understand what we have discussed. So
Mm.
based on what we have discussed, you were born in a very small but
Tropical
an
island,
amazing
small
place,
tropical island. Yeah,
where
it was
your
great.
father used to work in a mining industry, and that's where you're born. But then you realize while you're growing up that you kept changing places, new friends, new schools every now and then you met a lovely horse lady whom you proposed, and that's where
She's
you're.
got red hair. You need to change her hair to red,
Oh,
Ash.
okay. Thank God. I was actually thinking to do that, but then I thought it might be not good if I put red hair and then end up like,
Or
this
a
is not
blonde.
red hair. Why
I'd
did
be,
you put a red hair?
I'd be in trouble.
Yeah. So yeah, then one day she received a call from one of the customers, and
Mm,
then you know he asked for some details about, I don't know, 10 years back record, which
yeah,
we couldn't.
15 years. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
how do you remember every single file? I don't know how you do it. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's what uh triggers the inception of horse records, where
Mm,
you started putting it all together. Although you were working in the background on a consulting job, but this was something like you're looking forward to. You kept building
yeah.
based on the different feedback you received. You also mentioned that the first line of code you have written in 2019, but that
Hmm.
kept growing with new features, new understanding. And two main key people being with you on this journey is your wife and your
Hmm.
mother-in-law, who is sort of
Mother-in-law,
like a
yeah. Yeah,
doctor in
definitely.
the horse science, I guess. Yeah,
Oh, she's written books, but because she
yeah,
just knows a lot.
yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I couldn't find the right word, like a like a horse genius, right?
Yes,
and
yeah,
and
that'd be
and
a
that
good one.
helped you
I'll tell
quite a
her
lot.
that.
Yeah. uh, that helped you quite a lot understand how the whole industry, whole space work. But the first thing which you recognize in the journey is the client feedback. The best
Mm,
part of it, which is you kept taking the client feedback and you kept growing. And you also mentioned that there are various things which we don't know about horses, like they need a dentist every year, they need
yeah,
vaccination, they need
farrier.
their
They
life
need
is
their
20 to
feet
30
done.
year, things like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
having a horse record actually makes the horse a better asset compared to
Mm,
an horse which doesn't have that many records
mm.
as
I once,
such.
my wife was once away, and one of our horses had injured itself, had run into a fence or something. We had to get the vet,
Mm.
and I pulled this horse in, and the vet, she's a lovely lady. She says, "Oh, when was this horse's last tetanus?" And I'm like, I have no idea. It's not my horse. And then I thought, hang on, I've written some software about that. So I went on the record, and my wife had given it tetanus 4 months ago. So
Oh,
I could say to
perfect.
the vet, yeah, here it is, 4 months ago, this was the date. And the vet goes, great, okay, we don't need to give it a tetanus. So you're saving over medication, and you're saving
Mm.
having to pay for something that, to be honest, they would have just given anyway just to make sure, but you don't have to. So you save
Mm.
that fee as well. So yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
Great stuff. So yeah, I think we have covered almost everything.
Hmm.
Anything you think we have missed, which in the diagram or?
No, no, that looks pretty good. I'll send that photo of that drawing of my wife to her. I'm sure she'll like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
Sure thing. Sure thing.
my
Great.
my hair's grey, Ash. So
Oh, okay. We'll change that later.
yeah, no worries.
Cool. So the last segment we have on our show is the lightning round. We have some
Yep.
quick fire
Okay.
questions. You can answer them, or if you don't feel answering, just give me a shout, and then we can skip
Yep.
them. But
Okay.
just casual. So you ready?
Yep. Ready.
Great. What are the top three strategies to generate more traction for any business founder in 2025?
I think you need to know your customer and be friendly with your customer. You need to constantly uh, explain to them what your product does. And
Hmm.
it's not always hard sell. Sometimes you just got to throw in a few jokes and keep it going. So keep that
Hmm.
communication. And I also think you sort of need to keep developing and keep making things easier for your customers.
Mm. So the iterative feedback loop
Yeah,
is very
yeah, and
important.
bring in new things like AI comes in. So when AI came in, I created a file name generator just for fun. So you
Mm-hmm.
can go onto my site, go into tools, file name generator, completely free. And that's my largest ranking SEO page on my
Mm.
site by far. And it's where I get all my Google traffic. They all come to this one little thing that helps you create the name of a file
Mm.
that I
And
did as a
and
joke one day
and
on a weekend.
and a fall means a baby horse, is it? Or
Yes, yeah, yeah.
okay.
So you
I,
can
I'm
go on
sorry.
and yeah, and pretend. So you can just say, "Oh, my file will be black,
Mm,
and I want the theme of, I don't know, astronomy,"
mm.
and it'll come up with 20 names for your mythical foal. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's really cool. And what book would you recommend to our audience and why, from a startup founder's perspective?
I'm gonna go really far back. The one that really helped me when I was a young man was called Thick Face Black Heart by
Hmm.
Ching-Ning Chu. Do you know that one, Ash?
Never heard about
No,
it.
it's
No.
it's it's effectively, to me, it helped me gain assertiveness in. I was brought up um, in such a way that my personality wasn't very assertive,
Mm.
and and I always tried to balance, you know, being a people pleaser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Thick Face Black Heart is one of the books I read that really helped me handle that, um, and learn to be recognised. You
That's
know,
good. That's
you
good.
got needs and stuff like that. You don't have to always say yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Persistence.
Persistence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just got
That's
to
always.
keep grinding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Um, my favorite technique I use when I can't get started is to just do the smallest thing.
Mm.
So, for example, sometimes you don't have it in you. You know you have to do some code. You're procrastinating. You don't have it in you. I say, well, what I'll do is I'll just start up my text editor and load my code base, which is like the first thing you do anytime. It takes about 30 seconds. That's the first thing. And sometimes just doing that first step is enough for your brain to click and go, okay, we'll do this now. So it's like, the hardest thing is actually getting to your computer, firing it up, opening up the software, and then your brain clicks on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a technique I use. Is just when I can't get going, it's just that, just do the smallest thing you can. If I just do this, I'll be happy. And then you
Mm.
find that you click on and keep going.
Got it. Got it. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
It would be making a robot that cleaned my bathroom.
Everybody
Because,
wants that.
dude, yeah, we're creating images, and writing books and writing code. We just want robots to cook our dinners for us. Why can't we
Yeah.
have that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think I saw a Shark Tank episode where there was a robot for like a restaurant to cook like some
yeah,
Chinese food. But I don't see that robot because the robot was like on the wall with two hands, but I don't see that robot for the
oh,
houses. We need somebody who looks like a human, sort of. I think so.
I've got another idea as well.
Yeah.
A domestic drone thing that could take off, scan my paddocks, spray the weeds, and then you flick the button, and then it goes and sees my paddocks. I, I know
Mm,
I know there's a lot of commercial proof of concept stuff going, but there's nothing domestically for hobby farms. But
mm,
imagine you get a council with these drones that can just spray weeds. You can set them off over the roughest terrain at all. The drone can take whatever you throw at it, and it just point sprays these weeds to help the environment.
mm.
And I just want it for better feed in my paddocks, but you can
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
further.
Yeah.
The coding would be easy. It's just,
Easy.
why isn't it done yet? So,
Great. And the last but not least,
mm,
what's an interesting fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I'm a basketball referee.
Ah,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah. So I do. I would referee 6 or 7 games a week at local competition and the district competition. Under 10s, under 12s, under 14s, under 16s, under 18s, and women's A's and B's. I've done some men's senior, but not quite high enough level yet.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting. Most refs in my state are teenagers. So they see this grumpy old grey haired dude come out and they think I'm extremely senior, and I've been doing it for a year and a bit. So yeah, I really enjoy it. Keeps me fit, Ash. You run about 3 to 3.5 kilometres a game. So it,
Oh,
it adds up. Yeah, you do three
that's pretty
games in a
cool.
row, and that's
There you
10K
go.
you've run.
10,000
Yeah,
steps or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah. It's a lot like
Cool, cool,
oh,
cool. Nice. So, Andy, this has been a really cool episode for me because I've learned so much about horses,
yeah.
and I hope that my listeners also have same thing to say. But
Mm,
what I loved about this episode is the the way you created the whole business for you, because that's the fundamental thing to learn from this episode, I believe, for
mm.
my listeners. So thank you so much for joining
Thank
me and
you,
sharing
Ash.
your story, unpacking last years of buildings and this business, and some of the ups and downs. If people want to check out horse records, or people want to get in touch with you, what's the best
Mm.
way to do it?
Yeah, so horserecords.info is the website. And the logo is like a horse's head on a dark background.
Hmm.
I rank fairly high in Google, so hopefully in your countries it'll be up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'm Andy at horserecords.info. If anyone wanted to email me, more than happy to take you, have an email, have a chat. Yeah,
Perfect. Great stuff. And do you have a LinkedIn account?
I do.
Hmm.
There is a Horse Records LinkedIn account,
Hmm.
and there's what's my? I'll just bring up my Andy Ide one. So yeah, there's me, Andy Ide. It just says business owner at Horse Records. It's a photo of me with our stallion, Sonny,
Hmm.
and yeah, Andy Ide A53521334. So yeah,
I'm
happy
sure.
to
I'm sure they can search you with
happy
horse
to have a
records in
link.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, there's not too
Yeah,
many dudes with me and a big horse here that
Sunny.
I'm
Yeah,
hugging.
great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for turning up on this episode, Andy, and thank you very much for joining us today, because you shared your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing with horse records. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Excellent. Thank you, Ash, and thanks to all your listeners for listening to my stories.
Great. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Andy insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to search for Andy Ide on LinkedIn or Horse Records. Push a connect button and send him as many questions you have about horse records or even your horse. He has a mother-in-law who has written a lot of books, so he would be able to help you with any questions you have regarding your horse.
Oh, books.
4 books. Yeah, there you go. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on our future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.